Hello there, my friend, and welcome to this week's Wellbeing Wednesday. Now, if you've ever felt stressed about sticking to a healthy eating plan, especially after a cancer diagnosis and after treatment has ended, even more specifically, you, my friend, are not alone. There's so much pressure to get it right. Right? You don't want to get it wrong. You don't want to choose the wrong thing. You don't want to go down the wrong path because there's that fear, the fear of getting it wrong and causing a reoccurrence. And that fear is heavy. And it's especially something that we want to get right when it comes to nutrition, right? It's something we all do multiple times a day. But here's the thing, and this is something that I don't hear many people talking about, right? Stressing over eating healthier might actually be doing more harm than good, both for your mind and your body. If we haven't yet met, I'm Karen Del Maestro, your health coach. I'm a breast cancer survivor, resilient routines expert, and I specialize in helping breast cancer survivors just like you eat healthier without it being hard. Okay? And so today we're going to be talking about specifically why stressing, procrastinating, stewing, all of those things that we do over healthy eating isn't good for you. And I'm going to be sharing some insights from Dr. W. Douglas Brody's Cancer Personality Traits. This was one of my biggest aha light bulb moments when I was trying to connect the dots as to why I got cancer when I did. I carry the BRCA2 genetic mutation, which means that for my entire life, I carried this mutation. And so my question when I was diagnosed with breast cancer was, why did I get cancer now? Right? It's like what shifted and it enabled me with this massive amount of data that I could collect to look back and say, what has changed in my life that caused this diagnosis to happen right now? That was massive for me. And I really think of it as a gift because, I wasn't just looking at all of the things, but I was looking at my life over the previous couple of years. And when I discovered the work of Dr. W. Douglas Brody, let me tell you, boy, did it connect dots. It connected dots for me like crazy. And a year prior to my diagnosis, I went through 3 major traumatic events back to back to back within a month period. Okay. Talk about stress. I was in major fight or flight mode. I didn't know where to go, what to do, or what to deal with. Okay. So, and you may have too, like there's a big connection I'm finding between stress doesn't cause cancer. Okay. I want to be clear with that, but it's the way that we cope with stress that can. So let's dive into why stressing over healthy eating, especially with this context of cancer, might not be the best approach. Okay. So I'm also going to take a closer look at what Dr. W. Douglas Brody, a pioneer in cancer care, calls the cancer personality traits and how they could relate to your own journey today too. Now, let's dive into these cancer personality traits according to Dr. Brody. There are actually 7 of them. I'm not sharing all of them with you today, but Dr. Brody spent decades working with cancer patients, and he's an integrative cancer therapist. And what he noticed was something truly fascinating. And that's that many of his patients shared certain personality traits. And these traits, while not inherently harmful, right, can sometimes contribute to chronic stress, which, as we know, plays an overall role in our health, right? We know that stress isn't good for us. I don't think I'm telling you something that you don't already know. But Dr. Brody believed that addressing these traits was just as important as treating the physical side of cancer. I have to say that I strongly agree. I strongly agree because I was, as a health coach, as somebody that's always been involved in preventative healthcare. I was eating right. I was exercising. I was doing all of those things, but I was not, my friend, addressing how I was managing stress. I wasn't working on the mental and emotional health as much as the physical. And we're holistic beings, all of us. And so we get to look at this. And I want you to feel excited about it, right? Because this is something that, again, not many people are talking about. And it's important. It truly is. So I want to share some of the traits that Dr. Brody observed. Things like perfectionism. Now, you may say, I'm not a perfectionist, Karen, but let me tell you, do you feel like you need to get everything just right? Do you feel like you have to do everything until it is just so? And when it comes to eating, do you feel like you have to follow a plan to the T in order for it to be beneficial, even when it's not realistic? Think about that. I'm a recovering perfectionist over here. Perfectionism was so ingrained in me to my core, but I've actually unlearned being a perfectionist. And so you can too, right? If I can do it, you can too. The second one is people pleasing. Again, recovering people pleaser over here. This is why it connected so many dots for me, right? Do you have a tendency to prioritize other people's needs over your own? I used to. I used to put myself on the back burner all the time. I don't anymore. And I don't have an ounce of guilt over it. Because what I've actually learned, and we're going to dive into these a little bit more, but what I've actually learned is when I take care of me first, I've got more energy to share, to support others, to take care of others and my loved ones. That's not something I want to change about myself, and you don't need to either. We can do both. And the third one, and this was something I realized was really happening for me in that period prior to my diagnosis, is holding in emotions, suppressing your feelings, especially negative ones like anger or frustration, rather than expressing them. Now, if you're anything like me, I didn't know how I felt for so much of my life. In fact, I was numbing myself right to my feelings. Sorry, I forgot to put my phone on Do Not Disturb. Hang on one second. But I didn't even know how to feel them, right? I grew up in an era where children will be seen and not heard. So I didn't learn. I was never asked as a kid growing up, Karen, how do you feel about this? Karen, what do you want? I was never asked these questions. Perhaps it was the same for you. I think a lot of us in our generation grew up the same way. So it's nobody's fault here. And it's not the fault of these things that you got cancer. So I don't want you turning around and blaming yourself. That's not why I'm telling you this. But it's more to give you some data for some other things that you might choose to look at, right? So let's tie in. I want to integrate these things for you, these traits to healthy eating, and why stressing over nutrition could actually be counterproductive. Okay, so let's dive in a little bit more. Now, the perfectionist trap, right? I said recovering perfectionist over here. But let's talk about why perfect eating doesn't actually exist. If you are someone who's been on a cancer journey, you may feel like you need to be extra vigilant with your diet. I understand that, right? And the belief that eating the perfect diet will prevent cancer from coming back is a common one, right? And it's something we can put a lot of pressure on ourselves, right? And it's truly understandable. This is what we read out there. This is what Dr. Google is telling us. This is what our doctors might even be telling us. You need to go vegetarian. You need to go vegan. You have to follow this diet. You have to follow that diet. But here's the thing. Perfectionism can actually add a massive amount of unnecessary stress to an already challenging situation, right? I mean, this is hard, the pressure that we feel. And when you're a perfectionist, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking there's a perfect way to eat. But the reality is, no diet is flawless. And trying to stick to a rigid plan without allowing any room for flexibility or life to happen can make you feel like a failure when life inevitably throws us those curveballs. You know it's going to happen, right? And so this stress can actually backfire in a few key ways. Emotional eating, one of them, right? If you slip up even a little bit, maybe you had a piece of cake at a friend's birthday party or something, but you might spiral into emotional eating thinking, what's the point? I messed up, right? I was off track, or I had a bad day because you ate that piece of cake, or whatever it might be. And stress triggers these feelings of guilt or shame, which often can lead to even more unhealthy eating, right? It's like, screw it. Why bother? I've already messed up. You haven't messed up, my friend. You've been human. You've been human, and there's a different way. So please hang out with me until the end today, because I want you to know that there is a different way of doing it that is so much less stressful, where you can have that piece of cake and not feel guilty, right? Now, the other thing when we're stressed out is it increases our cortisol levels. Anybody that's been through perimenopause, menopause, most women, I think, understand the hormone cortisol. Cortisol is one of our hormones. And stress raises that cortisol level, right? As I said, a hormone. And when that is chronically elevated, in other words, when we are stressed in this mode of fight or flight all the time, what happens is it can actually negatively affect your immune system. So while you're aiming to eat better for your health, the stress of trying to eat perfectly could actually be undermining your immune system. The very thing that you want to protect, that you're trying to protect, because it's our immune system that helps us fight everything, right? Including those cancer cells. So what do we do instead? It's important to remember that a healthy diet is about balance. It's not about perfection. I strive for progress, not perfection, right? There's room here for self-compassion. And I invite you to give yourself grace when you don't hit every mark that you think you're supposed to. Okay? Let's talk about people pleasing. That was about perfectionists. Now let's dive into people pleasing a little bit and the struggle, and it's a real struggle to prioritize yourself. Now, one of the traits that Dr. Brody noticed in cancer patients is this tendency to prioritize other people's needs over their own. I think, and I don't think I'm speaking out of line here, but I think that this is chronically something that women deal with. And it's often, and I just want to share my own observation here. I know certainly in my sphere of the hundreds of women that I've spoken to, many of whom are actually even in caring professions, teachers, nurses, occupational therapists, physical therapists, coaches, therapists, people who are for a living taking care of others, as well as, moms. It's really a chronic problem, right? But what you may not realize is that this need to prioritize others. I mean, again, this is something I can relate to. I grew up thinking I'm just going to do everything to make everybody else happy, because then I'll be happy when everybody else is happy. And let me tell you, it didn't work out for me. Busted my butt, turned myself into a pretzel to try and make everybody else happy. Everybody else was never happy, and so I was never happy. Now that I've shifted and prioritized myself first, I'm happy, and I see everybody else much happier too. So, but this need to prioritize everybody else can actually translate into your eating habits in a really super sneaky way. So let's take a look. So for example, maybe you're preparing a healthy meal for yourself. But then your family asks you for something different, something less healthy, right? So instead of sticking to your plan, you might give in and cook something that suits the whole family, right? And everybody else, neglecting your own nutritional needs. I mean, think about it and be honest with yourself, not judgmental, just observing and getting curious here. How many times have you been cooking something and I don't like chicken, broccoli, it's green. I don't want anything green on my plate. We had that yesterday. Can we have something different? I mean, I'm just telling you, these are things that I know I heard. And I used to say, okay, I'll do that instead, trying to keep everybody happy. It's real. It's real. Or maybe you're stressed out about eating because you just don't want to make a fuss by asking for a healthier option. If you're traveling or you're at a restaurant, you don't want to draw attention to yourself, right? These are classic examples of people pleasing behavior. And while it might seem harmless in the moment, it's over time that this pattern can actually erode your progress. And I don't want that for you. And here's the kicker, guys. When you constantly put others ahead of yourself, you're also reinforcing that stress cycle. Your body can't heal and can't thrive when it's constantly in fight or flight mode due to stress. It's not a healing place. So whether that stress comes from diet or anything else in your life, and I know that the world is in a super stressful place right now, right? And I get that. And you can't control a lot of it, but you can control you. So here's what to do instead. It's okay to put yourself first, especially when it comes to your health. Nobody else can do this for you, right? I invite you to set boundaries around your food choices and don't be afraid to make requests or stick to your own plan. Remember, taking care of yourself is not selfish. It's essential. It's essential. And especially when we use the science from people like Dr. Brody to back it up, I want you to know this is not just a Karenism. There's science here. Now, thirdly, let's talk about the impact of suppressed emotions, right, on our eating habits. Well, Dr. Brody's work highlighted that many cancer patients tend to hold in their emotions rather than express them. Again, something I used to do. By the way, there are 7 things on Dr. Brody's personality cancer checklist. And I will link that in the show notes to this episode, by the way. So if you want to get the whole checklist, I have it. And we'll link it for you in this episode. But I used to be all of them at one point in time. All of them. I'm not anymore. And I've helped myself and my clients in all of my programs. This is kind of in the back of my head as an overarching way to also help you lower, your risk of getting sick again. And stress is a biggie. And so that's why I don't want you to stress about this, right? So if we stress, if we're keeping in our emotions, if we're bottling them all up, if we're sucking it up and trying to push through it, what happens? Do we tend to stress eat? Do we tend to want cookies and ice cream and chocolate? Or in my case, sour cream and onion potato chips? If you're not expressing how you feel, you might use food. It's a very common way to numb those unspoken emotions. We may also use alcohol, medications. There are different things that we do. And obviously we know that a lot of those sugary foods are also not good for us after cancer. We know that alcohol, not good for us after cancer. And so, and I'm not saying that necessarily we have to rule it out altogether, but we need to be mindful. And when we're in this emotional eating zone, we're not being mindful. We're numbing. And again, I'm not judging. Right? I'm not judging. This is part of being a human being, living a human existence, and having grown up not learning how to express your emotions. does not mean that you can't learn how to do it. And stress, sadness, frustration anxiety can easily lead to reaching for these comfort foods. I'm not telling you something you don't already know. But here's the thing. Eating under emotional distress rarely leads to healthy choices, right? It's the comfort foods. And afterwards, what happens? Negative Nancy, that negative voice in your head, I've named her Negative Nancy, no disrespect to anybody called Nancy, but she comes in hot and heavy, right? Makes you feel guilty, makes you feel shame, and makes you feel more stressed. Why are you doing this? You know you shouldn't be doing this. You know you shouldn't be eating that. Why are you doing it? You should know better by now. All of the shoulds, right? She's very cruel, Negative Nancy. But it just brings more stress, more angst, more anxiety. Now, these suppressed emotions not only contribute to unhealthy eating patterns, but also lead to higher levels of stress in the body, right? And this can make it even harder to maintain a healthy nutrition plan because stress itself triggers cravings for comfort food. And they're usually high in sugar or fat or salt. So what do we do instead? Well, finding healthy outlets for your emotions is really the key. So whether that's through journaling, talking to a good non-judgmental friend, somebody that actually gets it, seeing a coach or talking to a therapist can actually help you break this cycle. When you allow yourself to feel and express emotions, you're less likely to turn to food for comfort, my friend. Just a fact. So I think you can see, right, that stressing over nutrition, it's not helping. And it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that the more you stress about eating better, the better off you'll be. But the truth is, stress is not your friend. And chronic stress impacts your immune system, your digestion, your moods, and even your ability to absorb nutrients. So while you might be trying your best to eat well, if you're stressed about it all the time, your body might not be getting even the full benefit of the little bits that you are eating. So instead of stressing over every meal or every bite, think about the bigger picture, right? Your goal overall, I'm sure, like mine, is health and well-being, right? It's not perfection. We need to strive for flexibility, for balance and mindfulness, because they are far more effective tools than rigid dieting and stress. So before we finish up today, again, I know that I've shared a lot already, but I want to leave you with a few tiny tips to help you reduce stress around healthy eating. Okay, 3 quick tips. Number 1 is to prioritize self-compassion, being kind to yourself when it comes to your diet, your nutrition. Give yourself credit for the healthy choices that you're making, and don't beat yourself up over the occasional indulgences, not daily, occasional. Tip number 2 is to tune into your body. Focus on how your body feels when you eat certain foods, rather than sticking to any strict rules. I actually hate diets. They don't work, and I don't believe in them. But this, when you listen to your body, it can actually help you develop a much more intuitive and relaxed approach to eating healthy. And the third thing is to practice mindful eating, taking your time to actually enjoy your meals, eating slowly, not stuffing, right? Be careful about sitting in front of the TV, but actually savoring each bite, because this can help you stay in tune with your hunger and your fullness cues, right? So reducing the likelihood of stress eating and overeating and binge eating. Again, these are normal things, so I'm not judging. So to wrap it up today, I invite you to let go of stress and embrace balance instead, okay? And at the end of the day, stressing over eating healthier is not serving you, period. Especially if you, like me, identify with Dr. Brody's cancer personality traits. It's time, my friend, to shift your focus from perfection and pressure to balance and self-compassion, right? Find that easier place for yourself. And if you're looking for more guidance on how to find that balance, that elusive balance, I get it. Why not check out my upcoming masterclass? From difficult to doable, 4 easy steps to start eating healthier today, packed with practical advice, right? Easy on how to make healthy eating easier, less stressful, and even more enjoyable. And when I say more enjoyable, I want you to think about, if you've ever seen the movie Eat, Pray, Love with Julia Roberts, her first bite of pizza when she was in Italy. And it's steaming hot, and the smell you can almost feel coming through the screen. I want you to be able to enjoy food the way that she enjoyed that slice of pizza. Okay? Because it's possible, and without feeling guilty, just like she did in the movie too, right? It's all possible. So take a deep breath. You're doing great. And you've got this, and I want you to know that you don't have to travel it alone. Because I am here right by your side, holding your hand, showing you and shortcutting this path for you that I learned the hard way so that you don't have to. Okay, so simply click in the show notes. You will get a link to sign up for this class. It's free. What have you got to lose? But except for a whole ton of stress, right? So join me for that class, and I hope to see your name popping up soon. Thank you for watching me and joining today. I'm Karen Del Maestro, your health coach, breast cancer survivor, and resilient routines expert. And I specialize in making healthy eating easy for you after you're done with treatment. Okay? I will see you next Wednesday, and have an amazing week. Till then, bye for now.